The sun was shining on the sea, shining with all his might. He did the very best to make the billows smooth and bright. This was all because it was the middle of the night. The moon was shining sulkily because he thought the sun had got no business to be there after the day was done. It's very rude of him, she said, to come and spoil the fun. The sea was wet as wet could be, the sands were dry as dry. You could not see a cloud because no cloud was in the sky. No birds were flying overhead. There were no birds to fly. The walrus and the carpenter were walking close at hand. They wept like anything to see such quantities of sand. If this were only cleared away, they said it would be grand. If 7 maids with 7 mops swept it for half a year, do you suppose, the walrus said, that they could get it clear? I doubt it, said the carpenter, and shed a bitter tear. Why, oysters, come and walk with us, the walrus did beseech. A pleasant walk, a pleasant talk along the briny beach. We cannot do with more than 4 to give a hand to each. The eldest oyster looked at him, but never a word he said. The eldest oyster winked his eye, and shook his heavy head, meaning to say he did not choose to leave the oyster bed. But 4 young oysters hurried up, all eager for the treat. Their coats were brushed, their feathers were washed, their shoes were clean and neat, and this was all because you know they hadn't any feet. 4 oysters, other oysters followed them, and yet another 4. Thinking fast, they came at last, and more and more and more, all hopping through the frothy waves and scrambling to the shore. The walrus and the carpenter walked on a mile or so. Then they rested on a rock conveniently low, and all the little oysters stood and waited in a row. The time has come, the walrus says, to talk of many things, of shoes, of ships, and sealing wax, of cabbages and kings, and why the sea is boiling hot and whether pigs have wings. But wait a bit, the oysters cried, before we have our chat, for some of us are out of breath and all of us are fat. No hurry, said the carpenter, they thank them much for that. A loaf of bread, the walrus said, is what we chiefly need. Pepper and vinegar, besides, are very good indeed. Now, if you're ready, oysters dear, we can begin to feed. But not on us, the oysters cried, turning a little blue. After such kindness, that would be a dismal thing to do. The night is fine, the walrus said. Do you admire the view? It was so kind of you to come, and you are so very nice. The carpenter said nothing, but cut us another slice. I wish you were not quite so deaf. I've had to ask you twice. It seems a shame, the walrus said, to play them such a trick. After we brought them out so far, made them truck so quick. The carpenter said nothing, but the butter spreads too thick. I weep for you, the walrus said. I deeply sympathize. With sobs and tears he sorted out those of the largest size, holding his pocket handkerchief before his dreaming eyes. Oh, oysters, said the carpenter, you've had a pleasant run. Shall we be trotting home again? But answer there came none, and this was scarcely odd because they'd eaten every one. Rudyard Kipling, the Vampire. A fool there was, and he made his prayer even as you and I. To a rag and a bone and a hank of hair we called to the woman that did not care, but the fool he called her his lady fair, even as you and I. Oh, the years we waste, and the tears we waste, and the work of our head and hand belonged to the woman who did not know, and now we can know that she never could know, and did not understand. A fool there was, and his goods he spent, even as you and I. Honor and faith and a sure intent, and it wasn't the least what the lady meant, but a fool must follow his natural bent, even as you and I. Oh, the toil we lost and the spoil we lost and the excellent things we planned belonged to the woman who didn't know why, and now we know that she never knew why and did not understand. The fool was stripped to his foolish hide, even as you and I, which she might have seen when she threw him aside, but it isn't on record the lady tried. So some of him lived, but most of him died, even as you and I. And isn't it the shame and isn't it the blame that stings like a white-hot brand? It's coming to know that she never knew why, seeing at least she could never know why and never could understand. Adam's Curse by William Butler Yeats. We sat together at one summer's end, that beautiful mild woman, your close friend, and you and I, and talked of poetry, and I said a line will take us hours maybe, yet if it does not seem like a moment's thought, our stitching and unstitching has yet been not. Better to go down upon our marrow bones and scrub a kitchen pavement or break stones like an old pauper in all kinds of weather, for to articulate sweet sounds together is to work harder than all these, and yet be thought an idler by the noisy set of bankers, schoolmasters, and clergymen, the martyrs call the world. And thereupon that beautiful mild woman, who, for whose sake there's many a one shall find out all heartache, on finding that her voice is sweet and low, replied, to be born woman is to know, although they do not talk of it at school, that we must labor to be beautiful. I said, it's certain it's no fine thing since Adam's fall, but needs much laboring. There have been lovers who have thought love should be so much compounded of high courtesy, that they would sigh and quote with learned looks precedents out of our beautiful old books, yet now it seems an idle trade enough. We sat, grown quiet at the name of love, and we saw the last embers of daylight die, and in the trembling blue-green sky, a moon worn as if it had been a shell, washed by time's waters as they rose and fell about the stars in broken days and years. I had thought for no one but your own years, and that you were beautiful, and that I strove to love you in the high old way of love, that it had all seemed happy, and yet we'd grown as weary-hearted as that hollow moon. I went to the hazel wood because a fire was in my head, and cut and peeled a hazel wand and hooked a berry to a thread. And when the white moths were on the wing, and moth-like stars were flickering out, I dropped a berry in the stream and caught a little silver trout. When I had laid it on the floor and went to blow the fire flame, but something rustled on the floor and someone called me by my name. It had become a glimmering girl with apple blossom in her hair, who called me by my name and ran and faded through the brightening air. Though I am old with wandering through hollow lands and hilly lands, I will find out where she has gone, and kiss her lips and take her hands, and walk among long dappled grass, and pluck till time and times are done, the silver apples of the moon, the golden apples of the sun. Not I, but the wind that blows through me. A fine wind is blowing through the new direction of time. If only I let it bear, carry me, if only it carry me. If only I am sensitive, subtle, delicate, a winged gift. If only most lovely of all I yield myself and am borrowed by the fine, fine wind that takes its course through the chaos of the world, like a fine and exquisite chisel, a wedge blade inserted. If only I am keen and hard like the sheer tip of a wedge, driven by invisible blows, the rock will split. We shall come at the wonder, we shall find the Hesperides. Oh, for the wonder that bubbles into my soul, I would for a good fountain, a good wellhead, would blur no whisper, spoil no expression. What is the knocking? What is the knocking at the door in the night? It is somebody who wants to do us harm. No, no, it is 3 strange angels. Admit them, admit them. Bring me wine, but wine which never grew in the belly of the grape, or who grew on vine whose taproots reaching through under the Andes of the Cape suffered no savor of the earth to escape. Let its grapes the morn salute from a nocturnal root, which feels the acrid juice of sticks and arabus, and turns the woe of night by its own craft to a more rich delight. Do we buy ashes for bread? We buy diluted wine. Give me of the true, whose ample leaves and tendrils curled among the silver hills of heaven draw everlasting dew, wine of wine, blood of the world, form of forms and mold of statures, that I, intoxicated, and by the draught assimilated, may float at pleasure through all natures, the bird language rightly spell, and that which roses say so well. wine that is shed like torrents of the sun up the horizon walls, or like the Atlantic streams which run when the South Sea calls, water and bread, food which needs no transmuting, rainbow flowering, wisdom fruiting, wine which is already man, food which teach and reason can, wine which music is, music and wine are one, that I, drinking this, shall hear far chaos talk with me, kings unborn shall walk with me, and the poor grass shall plot and plan what it will do when it is a man. Quick and so will I unlock every crypt of every rock. I think the joyful juice, for all I know, winds of remembering of the ancient being blow, and seeming solid walls of use open and flow. Pour Bacchus the remembering wine, retrieve the loss of me and mine. Vine for vine be anecdote, and the grape requite the lote. Haste to cure the old despair, reason in nature's lotus drenched, the memory of ages quenched, give them again to shine. Let wine repair what this undid, and where the infection slid, a dazzling memory revive. Refresh the aged faded tints, recut the aged prints, and write my old adventures with the pen which on the first day drew upon the tablets blue the dancing Pleiads and eternal men. Snowflakes. Out of the bosom of the air, out of the cloud folds of her garments shaken, over the woodlands brown and bare, over the silent harvest fields forsaken, silent and soft and slow descends the snow. Even as our cloudy fancies take suddenly shape in some divine expression, even as the troubled heart doth make in the white countenance confession, the troubled sky reveals the grief it feels. This is the poem of the air, slowly in silent syllables recorded. This is the secret of despair, long in its cloudy bosom hoarded, now whispered and revealed to wood and field.